Hello students, and welcome to the second video today for 3/22/17. Today what we're going to be doing is first posing the question of, my wife wants me to build a pond this summer in our backyard. In that pond, I want to know what type of plant I should plant around it, because you just can't have a pond by itself. It needs to have some sort of a background. In the picture on the right hand side of the screen, there's some classic pond plant, and that pond plant many of you know as cattails. Cattails are a wetland rush with long, thick leaves that provide a beautiful backdrop for landscape ponds. Their flowers are brown and shaped like a cigar, so that morphological adaptation provides them to have this pretty contrast of green into brown that a lot of people stereotype with different ponds. Those long stems can grow underground into a creeping mat to provide a very thick background to block out the view of your neighbors or block out the view of an unsightly fence maybe behind the pond, or even other equipment that the pond could have. So this would be a common plant that you might use in a pond. But what about this idea? That one flower can produce up to 250,000 seeds. It can spread by wind and is viable in dry soils until it gets wet so that it germinates for over 100 years. So they still can find 100-year-old cattail seeds that can produce a plant. Their underground runners can produce new plants, meaning they don't have to even reproduce by seeds. They can reproduce just by their roots. They can take over wetlands, crowding out native plants and destroying the native water bird habitat, because we need a different, you got to be able to swim around, those ducks do, and other waterfowl, and then they can actually absorb oxygen from the water saturated soil, so they can replenish while other plants can't. Not only that, they then can keep spreading and spreading throughout the area. The difficulty then can be costly to reclaim infested areas, and this can then cause a very invasive like plant. What we're going to do today is research in invasive species adaptations, because me being an unknown landowner and the ability to buy this invasive plant within our reach, because you can buy them on eBay, it's not illegal. Cattails are not categorized as an illegal plant to plant, but they can definitely turn into a very invasive species because of their cool adaptations. You today are going to research your own invasive species. So we've talked about the cane toad and the Asian carp and the spotted knapweed yesterday. And all of those are just species that are non-native to ecosystems and are under consideration and whose introduction causes harm. Again, pheasants are not invasive, though they are not native. They don't cause any harm to the environment or human health. Examples of invasive species are like the brown rat that was brought over to the United States. Silver carp, we've already talked about. There's a Eurasian collared dove, which kind of looks like a mourning dove, but it is a little bit different in that it has a black ring around its neck, and it can outcompete our native doves. There's spotted knapweed that we've already discussed on its allopathy, cane toads, which are poisonous and large and ferocious, and then zebra mussels that plug up piping and can take over waterways throughout Nebraska. Another one's kind of interesting, just to blow the mind, would be a fungus. So even microorganisms, and this particular one kills off amphibians, and so our frogs and salamanders are very affected by this chytrid fungus that feeds on them while they're hibernating. Then you have more and more ones, so that down at the bottom there, it's just kind of like a dot 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 that we can get to. I don't know if I can get those right, but it just leads to a dot dot dot, because your guys' goal today is going to go to find an example from NebraskaInvasives.com/species/ or by itself, and it will lead into a excuse me, a email or a sorry about this, a website that looks like this, and it has a whole slew of them. And so if that website happens to not work for you, you can just Google search Nebraska Invasive Species Program, and up will pop this website. With this website, it gives you choices within the aquatics, so you can choose any of these to do the following report that we'll discuss. Or you could go over to here and choose a wildlife one, an insect, a plant, and then pathogens. Any one of those can be chosen as your reports. Those reports then are gotten by taking information from, say, here's your Eurasian collared dove. You can take the information off here with the learn more about it. It's already pretty much the research is done for you. You just have to be able to listen to directions and pay long enough attention to understand how to get that information onto what your assignment that you're going to be graded wise. So after finding the species that you would like, on the front page of the paper that the substitute will give you, or I will give you if you're waiting till the next day, you'll draw the species out. And yes, if you are thinking you're that terrible of a drawer, you're welcome to print one out and put the common name at the top. So in this case, I have a European rabbit, which is not on the list, and I've drawn it out. Then on the back of the page, what we would like is for you to put how they were introduced. For instance, in Australia, the European rabbit was introduced in Victoria, Australia by a citizen that wanted to hunt rabbits because they didn't like hunting what was already there. Then talk about how the local species or resources that they threaten. For instance, rabbits can decimate the local sheep and cattle's grazing areas, lowering the production of an agricultural commodity. And then name an adaptation that they have and the type of adaptation. So physiologically, rabbits are able to reproduce very rapidly. This would be a physiological adaptation of rapid population growth or reproduction. This little assignment then is what we're going to use for our research invasive species objective. It will be due on Thursday. With that doing on Thursday, you just need the front side to be a picture with the common name, and on the back side have what the species is.